Good morning. My name is Matthew Morgan and I'm Council's Chief Executive Officer. I extend a warm welcome to those joining us via the live stream for this morning's unscheduled meeting of Council. Consistent with Section 13.3 of our governance rules, Council officers have been authorised to record the public session of this meeting using appropriate recording devices. I now turn to the Chair for the prayer and the acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Could I please ask people to rise whilst I read the prayer and acknowledgement of traditional owners? Almighty God, we humbly ask you to guide our deliberations for the welfare and benefit of the Moira Shire and its people whom we serve. Moira Shire Council acknowledges the Yorta Yorta Nation as the traditional owners of this land. We recognise the deep spiritual connection to land, waterways and community of the 8 clan groups of the Yorta Yorta Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. Please be seated. A very warm welcome to today's unscheduled meeting of the Moira Shire Council being held here in Cobram. Particularly warm welcome to those members of the community who may have joined us via our live streaming service as well. Are there any apologies or requests for leave of absence for today's meeting?
No, Chair.
Are there matters of conflict of interest to be disclosed?
No.
Take it there are none. We turn then to item 6, which is officer reports for determination, and I understand we are seeking to reorder the matters on today's agenda.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that Council resolve to amend the order of business for today's Council meeting to consider item 6.2, the quarterly budget review Q3, prior to item 6.1, adoption of the 2026-27 annual budget, to ensure that the quarterly budget review is considered before our discussion of the annual budget.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak to the motion? If not, I'll put the motion. The motion is carried. That takes us then to item 6.2 on today's agenda, and that is the quarterly budget review for March 2026. And I'd invite the Director of Corporate Performance, Mr. Peter Cannizzaro, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair Administrator, and through you. The purpose of this report is to present the quarterly budget review for the third quarter of the 25-26 financial year, being the period ended 31st of March 2026. This report is prepared in accordance with Council's obligations under Section 97 of the Local Government Act 2020. The March 26 quarterly budget review reports a forecast underlying deficit of $2.26 million. This compares to the underlying surplus of $374,000 forecast at the December 25 review, a movement of $2.63 million. The two primary drivers of this shift are the deferral of $1.2 million in recurrent Roads to Recovery grant funding to the 2026-27 financial year and a $1.3 million increase in depreciation following updated asset valuations. These are partially offset also by a $232,000 capital monetary contribution from GV Water toward drainage renewal works at McDonald Street, Nathalia. Notwithstanding the movement in the underlying result, Council's overall financial position remains sound. The working capital ratio is forecast at a strong 354%. Loans and borrowings remain within acceptable limits at 9.8% of rate revenue, and the asset renewal level of 124.82% reflects continued investment in Council's infrastructure base. Total income has decreased from $90.72 million in December 2025 to $88.47 million in March 2026, predominantly due to the deferral of capital grant income. Total expenditure has increased from $78.19 million to $79.53 million, primarily driven by the increase in depreciation, employee costs, and partially offset by savings in materials and services. The forecast operating surplus at March 26 is $8.94 million. The sum of cash and cash equivalents is forecast to be $41.8 $1.07 million, with a further $5 million in long-term investments by 30 June 2026. The overall balance of cash is trending below historical financial years due to only 50% of the financial assistance grants for 25-26 financial year being received in June 2025. However, we forecast that 50% of the 26-27 financial year funding will be received prior to the end of June 2026. With regard to the proposed capital works programs, this has been revised to $34.77 million, down from the approved December 25 forecast of $41.45 million. The $6.68 million reduction largely reflects the deferral of projects including the road asphalting program, Yarrawonga Multi-Sport Stadium, the Moira Shire Drainage Investment Program, and Yarrawonga Library, each deferred for documented reasons within the report relating to design complexity, compliance processes, or program sequencing. Year-to-date expenditure of capital as at 31 March 26 is $15.91 million, with $23.72 million in outstanding commitments. Thank you, Chair. I commend the recommendation to the administrators.
Thank you, Mr. Cannizzaro. I'm happy to move that Council Number 1 receive and note the quarterly budget review, March 2026 report, and endorse the March 2026 quarterly budget forecast contained therein, prepared in accordance with Section 97 of the Local Government Act 2020, and number 2, approve the forecast variations as detailed in the quarterly budget review, March 2026 report. Is there a seconder for that motion?
Yes, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Administrator Benedica. This report is a very detailed and comprehensive report which really sets out our forecast position as at the end of March 2026. As Mr. Cannizzaro has said, we are seeing here an adjustment of some $2.6 million, largely led by an increase of $1.3 million in depreciation, which was not originally budgeted for, and some $1.2 million in income deferred to next year under the Roads to Recovery program. That largely does account for the adjustment at Q3 that we are seeing. It is important that we do approve a number of adjustments to the capital program to make sure that we are accurately forecasting end-of-year expectations for the delivery of our capital program, noting that a number of the projects are underway and will need to be carried forward into the next financial year for finalisation. The key financial indicators are a really important governance indicator for us, and as Mr. Cannizzaro has said, we are seeing a continuation of a very sound set of financial indicators, albeit in future years with a very large asset base, we do continue to have ongoing challenges regarding the renewal and replacement of a number of our assets, given the large extent of assets for which we are the stewards. So thank you to the staff for a very comprehensive report here and bringing our forecast for year end up to as accurate as possible, or as we know it at this stage. Administrator Benedica, would you like to speak as seconder?
Yes, I'd like to just highlight some of the things that came to my attention when reading through this. As mentioned before, the deferral of recurrent funding, funds that we know are going to come into our budget, is actually not inside our timing. So being able to have a look accurately at any one time to know what's in our budget, what we expect and what we've received is really important. And that deferral on both financial assistance grants and Roads to Recovery grants will be covered, as we know, in the full extent of time, but it's getting the right picture at any one time. I also would like to say that it's pleasing to see that our key performance indicators and financial health indicators remain within the targets that we've set and are within acceptable targets. So thank you.
Thank you, Administrator Benedica. With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. We now move to item 6.1 on today's agenda, and that is the draft 2026-27 annual budget. And again, I'd invite Mr. Cannizzaro to present this report.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I am pleased to present this report as it seeks Council's endorsement of the draft 2026-27 annual budget for community engagement, and it is being drafted in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020 and Council's own community engagement policy. The draft budget has been prepared to give effect to the key initiatives and services outlined in the Council Plan 2025 to 29 and also the Moira 2045 Community Vision. The draft budget is guided by 4 key objectives: funding strategic initiatives aligned with community priorities, demonstrating financial restraint in recognition of cost of living pressures, delivering long-awaited major community projects, and maintaining important services through a sustainable delivery model. The total capital works program for 26-27 is $33.15 million, of which $12.49 million represents carried forward works being prioritised in 26-27. You will also note that approximately 28% of the program is attributable to 2 major projects: the Yarrawonga Library, Events and Performance Precinct, and the Yarrawonga Multi-Sport Stadium. Other significant projects include road resheeting and renewal programs, bridge safety works, drainage infrastructure, and the Numurkah Flood Mitigation Stage 2. The draft budget with regard to rates applies a rate increase of 2.73%, which is within the Minister's rate cap of 2.75% for 26-27. The average rate applied is $1,981.82 against a maximum capped rate of $2,035.93. Council has remained within its legislated obligations. Curbside collection service charges will increase by 7.7% overall, reflecting a fuel cost escalation adjustment arising from geopolitical pressures affecting global oil prices. Council's projected long-term financial indicators remain below desired sustainable targets. The adjusted underlying result forecasts that Council will spend more than it earns from everyday operations over the coming years. To return to a sustainable position by 28-29, Council will be identifying approximately $3.5 million in financial improvement measures. This challenge is not unique to Moira. It reflects a systemic structural gap between the state government's rate cap and consumer price index, as recently acknowledged by the Victorian Auditor General's Office, VAGO, in its report Results of 24-25 Audits, Local Government, published March 2026. To note, though, a financial sustainability strategy will be developed and presented to Council by 30th of November 2026, proposing a pathway to close this gap through service optimisation, revenue diversification, asset management efficiencies, and expenditure controls. If the recommendations are endorsed today, the draft budget will be open for community feedback for a minimum of 21 days, commencing 7th of May 2026. Public information sessions will be held across the Shire, namely Yarrawonga Shire Hall on the 20th of May, Cobram Civic Centre 20th of May, Nathalia Sports and Community Centre on the 26th of May, and also Numurkah Community Learning Centre on the 26th of May. We're also proposing a submissions hearing on the 2nd of June 2026 at Council's offices at Cobram. Thank you, Chair. I commend the recommendation to the Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Cannizzaro. Is there a mover for this item?
Yes, I'd like to move that Council, number 1, endorse the draft 2026-2027 annual budget as included in Attachment 1 for the purposes of community engagement in accordance with Section 94 of the Local Government Act 2020 and Council's community engagement policy for a minimum period of 21 days commencing from the 7th of May 2026. 2, accept written submissions on the draft 2026-27 annual budget during the community engagement period and invite those who make a submission during this period to present their submission in person at a submissions hearing. 3, establish a committee of Council in accordance with Section 63 of the Local Government Act 2020, comprising Chair Administrator Emonson, Administrator Susan Benedica, and the Chief Executive Officer of Moira Shire Council, to hear those submissions at a submissions hearing to be held on Tuesday, 2nd of June 2026. 4, Note that Council's projected long-term financial indicators in the draft annual budget are outside desired financial sustainability targets, and that a financial sustainability strategy will be developed and presented to Council for consideration by 30th of November 2026.
And I'm happy to second that motion. Do you wish to speak as mover of the motion?
Thank you. I do wish to speak. This is one of the most important documents we look at in any particular year, and it takes an enormous amount of work by the staff and by the administrators to go through each item and understand its implications, why it's in there, and what we need to do about it. The headlines in this particular budget, it's a balanced budget. It's taken quite a lot of work to get to that, and again, commending officers for the work that they've done. It's a balanced budget. It's within the state government rate cap of 2.75%. We've had to take into account and recognise cost of living pressures as we develop this. We also needed to consider fuel costs and the effect of rising fuel costs, particularly as they affect our garbage collections. I'm pleased to say that there's been no change to the rate structure. That is the same rate structure as we took through last year. It's got a very back to basics approach in the budget. Whilst there are the two major capital works that were mentioned by Mr. Cannizzaro in his report, we've also put significant amount of money in our capital works towards renewals and road upgrades. So this is the investments in roads and bridges and safety improvements throughout our network. That capital program of $33 million is significant and includes, major projects that we've talked about, but some other good projects that I'm looking forward to having feedback from community on. When we talk about the financial indicators in this particular annual budget, we're looking at the long-term financial plan. That is the plan that goes out for 10 years. And the pressure on us, whilst we might be able to manage them within a 12-month period, what happens over that longer period of time? The financial sustainability strategy that is being preempted in this motion is something we need to really consider and work on closely with the community. It's hard decision time, and we'll need to be taking that forward so that by the 30th of November, we've really got a plan for that next long-term plan. So I think that this budget also has taken very much into account the two leading guides that we always look to. One is the community vision that was developed by our community panel, endorsed by Council. That's the long-term vision of what we wanted to achieve. And then our council plan, which is the 4 years, we go back to that to make sure that we're meeting the initiatives that we've highlighted, we're undertaking the work that we need to do, and that we're moving progressively towards achieving all the things that we've set in the council plan. So that budget, the whole budget development is within that context. I'd like to, certainly endorse that motion.
Thank you, Administrator Benedica. As seconder of the motion, I'm also very pleased to be supporting the draft budget which is presented here tonight. The budget does seek to recognise the broader economic and financial environment in which Council operates. We have uncertainty from a geopolitical perspective, and we're seeing a number of cost pressures coming through as a result of conflict in the Middle East, and that is reflected in our waste collection charges as an example. And it is important that we do understand the current economic climate, that we do exercise financial restraint, that we do understand that cost of living pressures are real for many in our communities. And in that context, I think this budget does demonstrate the right balance of financial restraint. It does deliver a budget within an average rate assessment increase of 2.75%, which is the state government's rate cap. It is important to understand that it is budget that is built around back to basics as well. Roads, bridges, drainage are really fundamental parts of council's business. And this next year, 2026-27, this draft budget estimates that we will spend just over $22 million on roads, drainage, and like infrastructure alone. And that's a really significant investment in really important infrastructure on behalf of the community. The budget also delivers on major commitments, and those major commitments are largely around our major capital delivery projects. And I'm really pleased to see that those major projects will be substantially advanced next year to bring them online for the benefit of the community. It is worth understanding that whilst our indicators for financial indicators for 26-27 are sound, our long-term plan, our 10-year plan, does foreshadow longer term challenges, particularly to maintain and renew our existing assets. And we will, as a result of this resolution, if it's carried, set our mind to a financial strategy to ensure that by 28-29 we are positioning us in a long-term financially secure and sustainable position. Do look forward to hearing the community's feedback on this draft budget. We are doing a number of public information sessions. We will hear submissions on the 3rd of June, 2nd of June, and I really do look forward to hearing the community's feedback on this draft budget before we turn our mind to its finalisation towards the end of June. A big thank you to our staff, particularly our finance staff, for the enormous amount of work that goes into the preparation of a draft budget on an annual basis, and this year has been no exception in that regard. And if our appreciation can be forwarded back, Mr. Cannizzaro, to particularly the finance team for their work to date in preparing this draft budget. With that, I will put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. Can we now turn to item 6.3 on today's agenda, and that is C04125, supply and delivery of 4 enclosed cabin wide area mowers. And I'd invite our Director of Infrastructure, Ms. Rachel Gadd, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. So this report proposes the award of a contract for the supply of 4 enclosed cabin wide area mowers as part of the annual plant renewal program. These mowers will replace existing mowers within the fleet, and they'll also improve the occupational health and safety standards and efficiency of our parks and gardens teams. The new mowers are wider, which means less passes are required to mow the same area. This is expected to lead to time savings, and they'll be able to crews will be able to put their time to other things, which are also important. The closed cabs will reduce noise, dust and exposure to heat, which supports workforce wellbeing and our health and safety objectives across the organisation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Gadd. I'm happy to move that Council Number 1 award contract C04125, supply and delivery of 4 enclosed cabin wide area mowers to Ag Power and Transport Proprietary Limited for the lump sum amount of $609,320, excluding GST. Number 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to execute the contract documents. And 3, approve a variation to the 2025-2026 Heavy Plant Renewal Program mowers budget line from $460,000 to $609,320 to cover the total procurement cost, noting that this will be reduced and has been reduced in the draft Heavy Plant Renewal Program mowers budget line in 2026-27 by $150,000. Is there a seconder for that motion?
Yes, Chair, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Administrator Benedica. This procurement report in front of us today is relatively straightforward, and again, we have a very comprehensive procurement evaluation and assessment report available to us, and I'm very pleased to be supporting the award of this contract to Ag Power and Transport Proprietary Limited. It is worth noting that we are doing some adjustment across 2 financial years to our capital program to make way pay for this procurement. And in my mind, I'm very comfortable with that given the efficiency improvements that we will see through the acquisition of these new mowers, and particularly to see the OH&S improvements for our plant operators, which both elements are very important when we're considering the acquisition of new plant. Do you wish to speak as seconder of the motion?
Very briefly, as you said, this is a straightforward awarding of a contract, and we have had access to comprehensive materials that do the proper comparison and the due diligence. Again, whilst this has an adjustment over the 2 years period, I think that the gains in efficiency and the safety gains are well worth considering, and certainly second the motion.
With that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? The motion is carried. That brings us to the end of the business on the agenda today. Can I thank those who have joined us on the streaming service for joining today's meeting. With there being no further business outlined on today's agenda, I will declare the meeting